Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. One of the things I like to do, if you've been listening to me over time, is expose you to interesting companies, particularly up-and-coming technology-oriented companies that I think have an opportunity to really change our world for the positive. And I came across one that I wanted to share with you. I want to introduce you tonight to Perry Chappell. Perry is the CEO of something called Zing Communications, Inc. Perry's got quite an impressive resume of involvement in a bunch of different technology companies and other businesses in the past, and also in consulting to different companies. Perry, welcome to our show.
Brian, thank you very much. Really appreciate the time to talk to you and to your listeners.
So we're going to go through Zing in more detail in a couple of minutes, but give us the overview. What is Zing all about?
So Brian, Zing is all about the new internet, and we deem it fixed wireless entertainment. This is the ability for you to connect to 5G, which everybody's heard of 5G. And, this is going to be one of those things that is, again, a game changer, because 5G brings a lot of things both to the consumer, it brings it to the service operator, it brings it to the applications provider. And as it rolls out and deploys, and we all read about it in the news, we've all got our cell phones, it's going to make our lives richer. So we founded this company, and I'm the co-founder, about a year and a half ago. And we did that because we knew that this was coming. I'd spent some time with my friends at Ericsson, and Ericsson have been in the cellular game for a long time. They invented it. And they said, 25% of the traffic that's going to go down our backbone is going to go into this application. It's going to allow the telcos to get into consumers' homes. It's going to allow the consumers to have more choice with the telco. It's going to allow the application providers to build things like cloud gaming that need like incredibly low response time and latency to enable these new applications. And it's going to be a big thing. So that's what we're about. We're about.
So are you providing the 5G, or are you making the 5G easier to work, or what?
We are making it easier for the consumer to access 5G throughout their whole home and connect to these new services from the operator and these new immersive applications.
Fascinating. And you're a Toronto-based company?
We are, well, I'll back up on that. So the company, most of the assets are in the Greater Toronto area. We founded it as a Delaware company, Delaware parent with an Ontario subsidiary. And that was done because when we get to subsequent rounds of financing, we're expecting to be talking to institutional money from Sandhill Road and from large companies like Intel and Qualcomm that would back a company like Zing.
And so that is easier if you've got a Delaware head office?
The jury's out on that. When I founded the company, I had two partners, both of them in California, and I have one partner now based in California. That was the decision we made at that time. Now, to be honest, there are a lot of great Canadian private companies that get funding from U.S. venture. And so I don't want to turn anyone off to say it's got to be this way or it's got to be that way. That was just the decision we made, and it's one that we're staying with.
You've got quite a bunch of experience in technology. Tell us a little bit about your background, if you could.
Hey, Brian, thanks very much. So look, I've been in high tech my entire career, formative years at IBM, in the days of mainframe, when the first PCs came out. I actually had the first PC and, wrote point of sale systems for my auto mechanic. And that's how I grew kind of in the very early 80s. And then I went off from IBM to high tech startups that were trying to change the world. So first I went to a company called Genesis Microchip, and they had some ideas about what to do with video. They ended up in a new market category with a customer that had a great idea for a new product. And the product was a flat panel computer monitor, and the company was Apple. So based on that, we took the company public on NASDAQ in 1998 with a joint listing on the TSX. Well, it wasn't the TSX then, it was the TSE. But and we scaled that to about a $1.5 billion US enterprise value. And it was a great company. We then took that into flat panel television from flat panel computer monitor. So it was a tremendous, tremendous growth. Then went off to work for a company based in Toronto called Vixis that was trying to change the world with basically content portability, any content to any device at any time with any security cipher. and tons of patents. And that company did well, but it really didn't get as much capital as it needed to go forward. And so it eventually sold to another firm in the US, and those assets are now being managed as part of that firm. So lots and lots of, roller coaster high tech stuff. And it's all about inflection point, seeing the vision, believing in what you're going to do, and then seizing it.
I got to ask you, you have a degree in zoology. How does a guy with a degree in zoology get involved in all this high tech stuff?
Well, that's a great question, Brian. So I was always interested in tech, even when I was getting my zoology degree. I wrote lots of computer programs when I was at school, and it was close to a minor in computer science, and that always fascinated me. And then when I left university in 1981, which was a recession, if we remember back that far, there were no jobs for zoologists. So I had a choice. I basically could come out and go back to school for another 3 to 4 years and get my PhD. Or I could try something else, or I could take a job well below, the credentials I had coming out with honors in a BSc program. I chose to go work for IBM, and they put me into a computer operations flow because I had such a high aptitude with data processing. And that, turned me into the real techie that I am. So I got lucky.
It's impressive. You were with IBM for 14 years and you had 8 different jobs. You started as a facility supervisor, then you became computer operations, then computer operations supervisor, then systems programmer. Then in 1988, you were the Winter Olympics game sponsor data security and performance architect, then country level mainframe marketing specialist, and then financial services branch advisory, and then OEM sales director.
Right.
It's quite the evolution at IBM.
Well, the IBM was all about acronyms, and one of the acronyms for IBM was "I've been moved." So, and it's true. They, as a company, they didn't want people to get bored of being there. They really, if you'd been with a department for 2 years, and you had mobility, and you wanted to basically enhance your career and your skill set, they gave tremendous support for people to grow and round out their skills. And by the way, it keeps them from ever getting bored and ever wanting to leave. So that was part of the Big Blue mantra back then. And, if you're there and you see it and you seize it, you're always interested and you're always running 110 miles an hour, which is, guess what? It's good for corporate earnings. So, I was lucky. I mean, they're a great company then, and I think they're a great company now.
We're chatting tonight with Perry Chappell. He is the CEO and co-founder of a company by the name of Zing Communications, Inc. Great name, Zing Communications, Inc. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Perry in just a minute. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're talking about technology, interesting technology company tonight with Perry Chappell, who is the CEO and co-founder of Zing Communications. Perry, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about, what exactly Zing is and what you're trying to achieve, both from a technology standpoint as well as from a business standpoint.
Yeah, Brian, thanks very much. Look, Zing is all about fixed wireless access, which is the new internet. We like to deem it fixed wireless entertainment, the ability for the consumer to bring 5G technologies and 5G performance and opportunities throughout their whole home. This is a big thing, and I'll walk you through how big a thing it is as we crawl through the presentation.
Okay, great.
So first, a little bit about the future. I'm showing a forward-looking statement, which is about items I'll talk about in pro forma financials. Anything about the future can and will change, and this is normal things to talk about in terms of a forward-looking statement or safe harbor.
So really what you're saying is if people are interested at all in investing, they got to go and check out your actual filings before such time as they actually make an investment. Be forewarned.
Absolutely correct, Brian.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks. I'd like to start and give a reference to a quote to someone I highly respect, and that's Hans Vestberg, who's Verizon's CEO, and prior to that, he was a senior leader at Ericsson. A year ago at CES, he said, 5G, the invention that allows us to invent things we haven't even thought of yet. And I think that is apropos to what we're doing. It's apropos to the inflection point that's going to happen in this space.
So you really think 5G is going to be that profound a change?
No, I absolutely do. There are so many things that need to connect to a network. I mean, so many things. And every time you turn around, that number of things seems to double and double again, and then double again. And we know what happens when numbers start to do that. You've got to change the core of what you're connecting to. And that's what 5G allows us to do. It expands the number of things we can connect. It expands the speed at which they can connect greatly. And it also lowers the response time or the latency, which means that it enables a number of brand new opportunities and brand new inflection points for business.
So I had someone describe it to a very slow dial-up versus today. That change all over again, that kind of difference.
Absolutely. No, absolutely, it makes sense. Look, specific to what we're rolling out in our product in terms of applications, we're enabling things like cloud gaming, where the gaming stuff, all the heavy lifting is back in the cloud, but the players are in their homes. And they want to play not on their portable device, but they want to play on a large screen TV, which is what we give them the opportunity to do. That radio network, when it is fully functional, is going to operate at about 5 milliseconds of latency. And what that means is that if you've got lower latency and you're playing a game with me than I have, you have an advantage. And let me tell you that in gaming, every advantage counts. And by the way, some of it is monetized. There are a lot of people that play games professionally. So this is a core example of why this is important. What about telemedicine? When doctors are contributing on a live operation, but there's a latency problem or a lag problem between what's going on. This is going to enable better remote surgeries. And in the days like now, we're in a pandemic, this is a tremendous thing. It also is going to enable, less so in our environment, more for enterprise, collaborative edge computing, where I can now have compute workload running at remote locations, talking to each other across the 5G network as if they were sitting under one roof. And that is going to just make a tremendous use of assets.
And when's this going to happen, do you think, 5G?
It's happening now. Okay, so the networks are deploying 5G as quickly as their CapEx budgets allow. Some have more CapEx budgets than others. So in the case, I'll talk about the US first. So in the case of Verizon, in the 2021, Verizon bought $40 billion worth of C-band spectrum, which is the sub-6 gigahertz band. And then they spent another $15 billion on backhaul, basically on towers and infrastructure. So $55 billion of CapEx in 1 year. If you look at the years leading up to that, they were spending, a lot of money every year before that. So they've got over $100 billion invested. And guess what they want? A return on their investment.
So our cell prices are going to go up. Our data prices are going to go up.
Well, you always want, it's the serenity prayer, Brian. There's things I can't control, okay? And I'm not going to worry about them. But, typically, yes, returns have to come, but it depends on the competitive landscape of each country and how the telcos work in each country. So, let me give you just a flavor on that. I have someone on my advisory board who used to be the general manager of Bell Canada, and he was the CTO of ExploreNet when they rolled out fixed wireless access. So I spent time with him yesterday looking at telco infrastructure, basically Canada, US, and Europe. And Canada is the most restrictive. We know that's how we work here. The US is a little bit more competitive. And when you get to Europe, it's the Wild West. So there is a complete sharing of CapEx in Europe, where you've got Deutsche Telekom running their services in Italy because they just share, and they do that to basically drive the CapEx spend down by operator, but they're sharing it across country, and they're just doing it to exploit how much communication they can roll out. Now, that doesn't happen in Canada, and it happens not that much in the US, but every country and every geography is different in terms of how the recoveries happen.
Fascinating. It's going to be exciting to watch the future.
Absolutely. So let me just take you through a couple more things.
Okay.
A little bit about the market. So these numbers come from Ericsson. This is something called TAM, or total available market. And Ericsson is talking about a TAM cumulative between now and the end of 2027 for the fixed wireless access, this is the same application we're building, 800 million units, 800 million. So that's cumulative worldwide TAM. Now that does not include anything that is battery powered. So if you have a cell phone, if you have a portable Wi-Fi hotspot, like a MiFi device, that is not included in this number.
So it's huge.
It's huge, right? And it's going to deploy, again, this is following the spend from the operators. If you look at, I'm not going to spend more time on this slide, but if you spend, hang on, I'm going to, a little bit more detail, sorry, I thought it was in this deck. If you also look at what's happening, and this is in Ericsson's mobility report, which is public information, you can Google it on the web and download it and read it. It's about 50 pages. It is a tome of knowledge about what's happening in the space. It's dated November of 21. They're looking at the operators worldwide, about 75% of them have announced fixed wireless access offerings in their space. And of the ones that are offering it, now a number of them are starting to offer what they call not just minimal offerings, but they're called QoS offerings, quality of service. So they're guaranteeing bandwidth, they're guaranteeing no data caps, and they're guaranteeing the performance of the connection to the subscriber. So this is a serious thing. It's not just Canada or the US, it's around the world.
It's around the world. It's huge, and you think you can make a lot of revenue, if not profit, out of the opportunity.
We absolutely do. We absolutely do.
Okay.
Right. So let me just skip ahead. The problems that we're solving, and this is very high level, we're making access to 5G for the network for the whole home. I've talked to my guys about making the setup, very light touch. To be honest, on that topic, I had a call with a major consumer manufacturer located in Texas. So I'm not going to name them. You can guess who that might be, at their executive level this week. And they said, no, you want to go from light touch to zero touch. Here's a bunch of ideas on how you can go to zero touch. Here's some connections for you both in the US and in Asia that can help you get to zero touch. And we had calls with CEOs of companies tied on that introduction starting Wednesday and Thursday of this week, because they want to help. So you can guess who that manufacturer might be.
I got to tell you, I got a cable operator providing me my internet in my house here, and it's certainly not 5G yet. I have to call them once every few months because I got a problem in one room, or one TV set doesn't work, or another thing needs, it's nonstop problems.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's true. And, again, Canada is a different environment than it is in the US. So one of the items, and I'm ahead of myself, but let's skip ahead a couple of slides here. So one of the things that, I took it out of this deck, I'm sorry. One of the things that we put inside, and this is a picture of our product. So I'll talk to it from this slide. So this has, of course,
it's just a black box.
It's a black box. In fact, this is the black box right here. So this is an actual working prototype. This is unit number 1 of 10 that we've built. We're tooling up to deliver this in the second half of the year. I'll be having the website open later this week for pre-orders. That's what it looks like inside. So you can see, basically we've designed an array around the side to take the antennas. Antenna performance and antenna placement and configuration are extremely important for a device like this. Small little circuit board inside with a lot of density and a lot of secrets built in, but I'm not going to go into that on this interview. And this device, as it rolls out, that has 9 antennas. Okay, that's got connecting to, you got lots of radio stuff going on inside this box, right? So it's going to connect to 5G. It's going to plumb your house with Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth, and it's got to do it well. Okay, so that whole thing has to work properly. And my philosophy and our team's philosophy in this company is make the best thing that you can. Okay, that might be a little expensive to start, and then drive the cost out. Because if I put it in your house, Brian, I don't want you to return it. I want you to give me a rave review, right? And then, you know what? Then I'll drive the cost out and make millions of them. That's the right way to build a company.
So this is not connected up to a cable. It's connected up by way of an antenna to a cell phone tower that's got 5G coming out of it. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then what it does is it captures that 5G signal from that cell tower and transmits it throughout the house to TVs, to computers, to to cell phones, to everything else, to refrigerators or anything else that's making use of it.
That is absolutely correct. And
Okay.
it also connects to your television set, like an Apple TV or like an NVIDIA Shield, like a classic IPTV or content box. So it has a processor on board. I'm proud to say that we use Qualcomm inside our device. So we have the Qualcomm Snapdragon processor, which is incredibly powerful and incredibly feature rich. I went to Qualcomm branding this week and asked for their permission to use their branding material on my marketing materials and website. They gave me an acceptance within 12 hours. So they're very happy to help the company. They actually reached out to me after, this is from their product side, and said, hey, how about Mobile World Congress? Would you like to do like a press release together with Qualcomm for Mobile World Congress? I have this in writing, and I'm going, I'd love to. The danger is if I make the press release too soon, I'm not going to be able to make these fast enough to go deliver them. I've got to be a little bit careful of how we promote, but we're getting such support, Brian, from our vendors. We know we're on the right track.
Excellent.
Okay, so you asked about operator connection. One thing I wanted to talk about while we're on this slide is, we've integrated the latest technology from something, everybody knows what a SIM card is because you go get one from Rogers or Bell, you plug it in your phone, and that's how you authenticate with a network. We have that, of course, we have to, but we have something called eSIM, which is an electronic SIM. So this is the ability to do everything that you can do with a SIM card, but you don't ever have a physical asset called a SIM card. All of it happens in the background, connected to the network with these magic handshaking servers that allow this to work. This is not radical. This is actually deployed. If you have an Apple Watch, and I think Samsung now have it in their watch, the Apple Watch doesn't have a SIM card. The Apple Watch has an eSIM card, and it auto-authenticates on the Bell or the Rogers or whatever network that you have, and all of the certificates happen in the background. We are using the same tech in our device that Apple use in their watch.
Awesome.
Right.
And you've also got Alexa.
And we also have Alexa. Yeah. We want this thing to talk to you. We want it to be friendly. We want it to help with the user experience and the setup. And honestly, everyone likes to have a digital assistant. Now, I have requests from some of my customers to expand Alexa to Google Assistant and to other digital assistants. We, of course, are listening to our customer, and we will do that. But that will happen in our roadmap as opposed to at product launch.
Okay.
Right. Hardware is in hand. I just showed it to you. So this is our industrial design. This is a functioning unit. So it connects to the network. It connects to the television set and displays 4K. It launches applications. It's connecting. I'm actually testing it here. This is on an LTE circuit where my house is on Georgian Bay. And it is connecting at 150 to 200 megabits a second down and about 20 up. And that's on 4G, 4G LTE circuit. The tower is about 1 kilometer from my house. I have a tower map, which is you can get online as an app. And so I expect the 5G to be about 50% more than that. But that really, again, depends on the operator and depends on what level of performance they put in every one of the towers that they roll out. The Wi-Fi is working at speed. The applications are in bring up as we speak. And this is all running today without a fan. Now, in the final product, I may need to put a small fan just for provision in case the heat builds up. But I'm so proud of our engineering team. I can't tell you, they have done a tremendous job.
Where'd you get it engineered? Where'd you get it designed?
All the heavy lifting is done in the Greater Toronto area.
Excellent.
Right. So a little bit about our look forward. So we are getting some traction. These are financials. And again, this goes back to safe harbor and forward-looking statement. So we're engaged on some license bundle SaaS opportunities, which would add to these numbers in terms of the monthly recurrings. But on the hardware sales side, we are talking to a large US operator, one of these three, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. I'm not going to name them right now because we're under discussion. And we've been showing them what we have. They've been giving us guidance on how to tune what we have. We will be going into evaluation with them when it makes sense. That's after, probably in the March timeframe when I'm ready to take this down. I'm qualifying Dell, and I guess that lets out who I was talking to in Texas. We have a 5G private label opportunity and a virtual network operator. And I had a discussion with Best Buy senior purchasing about 2 weeks ago. Now, this all sounds great, but let me temper it a little bit. So in 21, we didn't have revenues. This was a spend year. We're developing the product. We spent just under $1 million in 2021. In 2022, this is a make sure the product is right year. So we are planning about 10,000 units to deploy, primarily B2C. So we're not planning to take this through any of those channels on the left. We will just sell it on the website and some curated channels that are very close to control so that we get the product right. And then as we move into 23 and 24, this is where the inflection points happen. This is when we turn on a retail channel like a Best Buy. This is when we start to turn on operator channels like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, or if in Canada, a Bell, Rogers, or a TELUS. And you don't need a lot of them to hit these numbers. So let me give you the thought that goes behind that. If we look at our, hang on, the go-to-markets aren't in here.
It's about $800 is what you're selling it for.
That's the initial price, yeah. Now, when this product, and that's US dollars, when this product hits mainstream in 23 and 24, I'll be selling it to operators at a significantly lower price than that. So it's going to be, it's something, again, we've already planned the cost down exercise. So when we get to 23 and 24, we'll have something that we can be selling for between $500 and $600. And actually, our guys have ways that we can get it to sell for less than that, but we've got work to do.
So it's about the price of a smartphone.
Yeah, it's the price of actually not an expensive smartphone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you go buy an Apple smartphone today, it's $1,000, right? So, and that doesn't include a router, that doesn't include an Apple TV functionality.
Unbelievable, and you've got a plan here that will take you to $250 million of sales in 3 years, and potentially EBITDA, earnings before interest and tax, of $500,000, $50 million in 3 years. It's pretty impressive. We're going to have to take a break for some messages, and then we're going to come back in a minute and continue this discovery of this fascinating company that Perry Chappell has been telling us about, Zing Communications. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're talking about technology companies tonight. We've got Perry Chappell, who is the CEO and co-founder of a company by the name of Zing Communications that's headquartered here in the Greater Toronto Area, designed primarily in the Greater Toronto Area. And he wants to change the way that we interact with 5G, with this black box that we're going to put into our house. It costs about $830 initially. And what it's going to do is it's going to take 5G signals that come from cell towers, and it's going to then take that through 8 different antennas that is in his little black box, and distribute that 5G signal all around our house so that computers, televisions, refrigerators, anything else that is connected to the internet can make use of. And it's going to be really fast. And lots of download capacity, such that we can game more quickly, we can video more quickly, we can interact with the internet more quickly. Sounds pretty impressive, Perry.
Hey, Brian, thanks very much. Well, I'd like to share a bit more about the technology and kind of what we're thinking.
Please.
If that's appropriate. So
yep.
I like to call this a bit more of a deep dive. So we'll just, we'll get into that. So in terms of our milestones, and this is high level, but I'd like to walk through it. In terms of the hardware, we had the prototype come back in December. I think I covered that in earlier portion of the call, but it is functioning to almost the minimum viable product level, where it connects to the internet on the outside to 5G, to your television set, runs the Wi-Fi to the house, and then the applications are up. Now, we've got lots of work to do and lots of tuning. And in terms of the next milestones, we went through CES. That was virtual for us this year. Most of my customers canceled, okay, and they decided to do it by this method, by Zoom and by Teams. We're planning to start carrier certifications in the April timeframe. And this is a radio product, so it needs to go through industry certs, both in the US and Canada. It's a long list, and we actually have a third-party vendor that's going to help us through the certs. We've selected a technology in terms of our modem technology that has already gone through certification with the FCC, with PTCRB, with Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, and ISED, which is Canada's version of the, loosely, Canada's version of the FCC. And so I'm not expecting there to be difficulties to go through CERT, but we don't want to underestimate it. And then we want to be in a production release from a hardware perspective by May. And then we start planning our builds and start planning how we're going to roll out. That's on the hardware. On the software, we use something called the Agile methodology, which is a rapid development methodology. This is best practices. We have 2-week sprints where we can take small chunks of work and just get the work done. Monthly software releases, and then a schedule of steady feature improvements tied to our product requirements. And then on the website, I'm planning to reboot the website as a full commercial site, live on Shopify by the end of this month. It's almost done. I've got a few things to wrap up. And there we're going to be taking pre-orders on the website, so $100 against the price. And we are going to be providing incentives for early adopters. Right now,
What's
the target
incentive? I want to be an early adopter.
You're in, Brian, you're in, absolutely. So there will be a coupon. Shopify is good with coupons for the early adopters. And if anyone from this show, because again, we are Canadian rooted at our core, wants to participate, glad to have them reach out, and I'd be delighted to support your audience on that as well, Brian.
Fantastic.
Right. Let's talk about the market opportunity.
And effectively, this starts working with whatever the service is you're getting now, even if you don't have 5G yet.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct. This will connect to LTE. It'll connect to GSM or 3G type services. But let's be honest with each other. You need to get this to be a really good system and to have the amount of data that most households need. You really need the power that comes from the 5G backbone. That's what makes this an inflection point and a game changer.
And you said there's a website somewhere that will allow us to know when 5G is coming to our neighborhood. How do we do that?
Well, all of the operators, Bell, Rogers, TELUS in Canada, and of course the big US operators, they're all very public about their 5G deployments, and they have live maps of where their towers are. There are also, and this is more for the techies, more for the geeks, there are a lot of tower apps, and I can send you these separately after the call for your reference. That you can download from iOS and from Android that will show you where all the towers are deployed, who owns the tower, right, and what frequencies the tower broadcasts in. So, and these are updated real time. I'm not sure if it's hourly, but it's updated certainly every week. So if somebody puts a new tower where you are, or they turn a new frequency on, you'll see that.
Awesome.
Right. Let's move through. So market opportunity, it's a big market. We talked about the worldwide 800 million. Even in the US, I have very close relationships with IDC, which is a large market research firm. IDC in June came out, and this was their numbers. Verizon is saying that by the end of 25, they will have reach to 50 million households. T-Mobile is claiming they will have 8 million subscribers. And then on top of that, AT&T, Dish, Comcast, all those are additional. Now, I want to point out that it was a small fact that everyone ignored in the last auction in the US, but Comcast bought spectrum, and Comcast didn't tell anybody what they bought the spectrum for. Of course, we know Comcast have a mobility play. They're trying to turn on mobile subscribers as well as their tethered cable customers, and they're trying to combine them. But they may be going into the space also. That's conjecture. We just know they bought spectrum. Canada are a little bit behind in terms of the rollout. So in Canada, we have a different telco infrastructure. Both Bell and Rogers and to a lesser extent the others well believe in running fiber to the house, which is their large fiber deployments. But there is a challenge with that. And I can't control this one, Brian. But if Rogers come and dig up your neighborhood, and I'm not picking on Rogers, it doesn't matter if it's Rogers or Bell. If one of them come and dig up your neighborhood and drop a fiber drop down your street, what are the odds that the other one is going to come and dig fiber and put it down the other side of your street?
Hi.
And I would say the odds are very low, and I'll just leave it at that.
Very low. So you think it's going to be first mover advantage?
Well, you see, but if this were the US, And I'm not saying, I'm not setting policy here and I'm not making a judgment, but if in the US Comcast, I can say what's happening there and you can extrapolate what is or isn't happening here. But in the US, if Comcast were the one to drop fiber to your house, Verizon would be knocking on your door saying, I've got fixed wireless access for you, Brian, at guess what? I'll show you the rates. This is Verizon. So I've got fixed wireless access for you, Brian, from 300 megabits to 940 megabits a second, no long-term contracts, unlimited data usage with no data caps, no bandwidth throttling. And if you're an existing Verizon customer, it's $50 a month. And if you're a new customer, it's $70 a month. Now, that's the US, okay? That's not Canada. And why is Verizon so aggressive on that? Because that's the same Verizon that spent $55 billion US dollars last year on 5G.
Harry, why is the US so much more competitive, so much cheaper than Canada? And they seem to have, an oligopoly in telecommunication providers, just like we do in Canada. But for some reason, it's so much more competitive and so much cheaper. Why?
Well, okay. Again, I can give you an opinion, but I don't want to make you think that I'm an expert in this field. But look, they have a lot more people in the US. Okay, a lot more. Okay, so there's a huge. It's a 10 market that's 10 times the size, and geographically, it's well covered. It's not like in a narrow band of 100 miles, of population spread between a fewer number of cities. So it's a completely different topology than we have in Canada. It's a different country. They have different laws. They have different regulations, and they have an expectation from their consumers that there should be a huge amount of choice, and there's a lot of pressure that they have that huge amount of choice. Antitrust is a huge thing in the US. I mean, they could break up next Facebook or Google or Apple or someone's because they're too big, right? So, I mean, that doesn't happen very much here. And
we pay a huge premium for our cell phone providers, for our data providers in Canada. I wonder if the Canadian consumer really is willing to pay that premium to keep Rogers, Bell, TELUS in business rather than having Horizon and Verizon come in.
Well, if you remember a few years ago, they were going to come in and they changed their mind at the last minute and said that they couldn't compete in this market because of the regulations. So, I mean, I'm not making a political statement here. That's just a fact. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, these are things that I can't change, Brian. I don't, and I'm not, look, I'm a proud Canadian. That's where we live, and we have to work with what we have.
As am I, but I don't like paying cell phone bills that are twice as expensive in Canada as they would be in the United States.
Well, and I don't like it either. But I mean, I have to work within my company and on myself. I have to work within the regulations. If I can help be an inflection point, I'm delighted to. But let me tell you what else I'm thinking for our product, because this is part of the core value prop in my mind. This thing we talked about called eSIM, which is the electronic SIM that's in our device. So let's say you live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you want to go connect to Verizon, because I'm not picking on Verizon. It could be any of them. You want to go connect to Verizon because they're the one that you picked, right? And it's going pretty well. And about 3 or 4 months later, or 6 months later, back to your earlier point, you've discovered some things about their service that aren't compelling, whether it's their support, their bandwidth, whatever. There's something that bugs you. And the T-Mobile guy, he comes and approaches you and says, Brian, we'd like to get your business. Here's a coupon, here's whatever, we want to get your business. You can, with the way this device is set up, decide to switch to T-Mobile. It goes out to T-Mobile, it gets an eSIM authentication parameter from T-Mobile, loads it in the device, and you can switch over because their plans are month to month down there, you can switch over on a monthly basis to another provider. You haven't changed the hardware, you haven't changed your house, you haven't changed your Wi-Fi, everything just changes, right? You don't need a new box. And it's even more powerful than that. If you want to do a try me, you can load a Verizon profile and a T-Mobile profile at the same time in the same box, and you can be connected to both of them. And you can decide which one's better. In fact, you can load 4, 5, 6 different eSIM profiles for either different providers or different service packages in the device.
Fantastic.
Now, which is fantastic. Now, we're not exclusive on eSIM. There are lots of devices. Your iPhone has eSIM. Yep. Your Samsung has an eSIM. There are carriers like TELUS and others, and I don't want to pick on TELUS, I'm sure Rogers and Bell do it as well, Verizon does it, that are really pushing eSIM as a technology to enable their customers to get these coupon-like services. Hey, for 20 bucks, you can get this. Hey, it's only 20 bucks. Click on the website. It's on my phone instantly. Next, for another 15 bucks, you can get this. Click, right? So it's a great way to roll out new things.
What's your competition?
Let me walk you through that. So I'm going to jump to a slide that's higher up, which is higher level, which is here. There are lots of people out there that can build devices that include connectivity and other functionality. There are companies based in the US like Apple and Google and Netgear and people like that, Amazon. And then there are a lot of Asian competitors. I've only got a few of them here, like Asus and HTC, and there are lots of made in China type products. Now, if I look at the cost and features, we are at the high end of the feature scale, and we actually are pretty competitive on cost. I've got a lower premium than what you'd pay for an Apple or someone else. And we think that makes a game-changing, value prop.
So there's going to be lots of people out there pitching us with products comparable to what you've got, but not
Absolutely.
with the same sort of features.
Not with the same sort of features. And to be honest, look, the market is 800 million between now and the end of 27. We're not targeting 800 million. We say that the top 10% of that is 80 million. That's a premium market. That's where we're in. And we're probably going to take 10% of that, which is 8 million. So, 8 million isn't a bad number, but it's only 1% of the TAM, 1%. And at 1% of the TAM, 800 million, by then our box will be selling for 400 bucks, okay, because it'll come down in cost. That's 3.2 billion in revenue. And I can tell you that my investors would be happy with that.
I think they sure would. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back with some concluding comments in just a minute with Perry Chappell, the CEO and co-founder of Zing Communications. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Perry Chappell. He is the CEO and co-founder of a fascinating communications company called Zing Communications. He is developing this box, a fixed wireless box that is going to take 5G signals from local cell phone towers, and it's going to transmit it throughout your house to all the different internet users, computers, telephones, televisions, refrigerators, any other type of box that accesses the computer at far higher download rates and far faster rates. He's going to sell it for 830 bucks to start with. He thinks after a couple of years, it's going to come down to 400 bucks. And he thinks he's going to do over $1 billion in sales in a couple of years. Sounds fascinating. Perry, if we believe all this and we read your regulatory filings and we think we want to invest, what are you doing?
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. So right now we're in the seed raise phase. The board approved and we are raising 1.5 million US dollars. That is a priced round at $1 per share, 4 million shares pre-money, fully diluted. We've already raised over 750,000 US, so we're over 50% of the goal. So we have 750K to go. The use of proceeds for the remaining part of the raise, we will complete the product that I've shown earlier here. That's going to consume about 450,000 US dollars. Certifications, we've budgeted 100, and we have a pre-certified radio module that we use in our device. So I'm confident that is actually more than enough, but we want to be safe on the certs. And then working capital, approximately 200,000. In semiconductors, you have to prepay for some of your components, or at least portions of it. So it's important that we plan on working capital. So that's
$1.5 million doesn't sound like that much.
Well, it's not that much. And, look, the product today is in pretty good shape. And this is going to get our first of out into the marketplace. This is going to allow us to ship on a B2C basis, a business to consumer basis, our first, thousands of units into that chain. We are, and again, full disclosure to the investors, we are going to come back in the second half of 2022, probably end of Q3 or through Q4 for something called a Series A raise. And that's going to be a much different discussion. So first of all, it's a much larger raise. It'll be around 10 million US dollars in Series A. That's the plan. I can walk you through a little of that just so that the people here can see it. So I will allow the seed investors, of course, to participate in the Series A. There, we're going to be targeting institutional money. So Qualcomm Ventures, Intel Capital, Dell Technologies Ventures. We've already actually spoken to all three of them. They've indicated interest, but again, interest is not a check until we get through some milestones. We need to have a working prototype. We need to have pre-orders on the web. We need to have a letter of intent or purchase orders from retail. This is something that we're planning a much larger pre-money. So here we're planning a pre-money in the range, which is typical from seed to Series A, of 10 to 15 million, which is $2 to $3 US per share. The use of proceeds here, this again is not today. This is 9 to 12 months from now. Would be vendor licensing, 1.3 million, product development, 4 million, CFO, VP of sales, so executive bench around 700K. Sales and marketing, 1.5, and here we put in a much larger tranche for working capital of 2.5 million. This allows us to get to the part in the pro forma where we need to have scale and lower cost points as we're into 2023 and 2024.
Sounds like a fascinating technology, a wonderful business, and a pretty aggressive both sales ramp up and financing strategy. And I wish you all the best, because I think it sounds pretty exciting to have this homegrown technology from Toronto take over the world. Is pretty exciting. Thank you, Perry Chappell, co-founder and CEO of Zing Communications, for sharing the Zing Communications story with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. Really appreciate it.
If people are interested in either the product or the investment opportunity, is there a website they go to, or how do they contact you?
They can send me an email and I will respond. It's my initial last name, PCHAPPELL @zing5g.com. And if for some reason that one's hard to remember, then sales@zing5g.com, and we'll get to that one too.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks everyone for joining us. I'm on to remind you every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online, whether you've got a Zing box or not, at www.saga960am.ca. You can get all my podcasts and video casts on briancrombie.com. My videos are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and my podcasts are on Apple, Audible, and Speakeasy Podcasts. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Perry Chappell, for sharing a really exciting technology opportunity and investment opportunity with us. Good night, everybody.